on October 17th. Join the Grumpy Dungeon Masters as we present Rime of the Frost Maiden live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Grumpy Dungeon Masters.
Well, there's our half orc. What's up, Craig? And Chris. I'm Jay. We are the Grumpy Dungeon Masters. Holy shit, I remembered an intro. I did not just jump into things. I actually went through an intro. Didn't have to come back and record one later.
So yeah, Hero Forge released the coloring to the public, and essentially, I had already had a few people for around the Frost Maiden game. I had a couple people make the minis already in the Hero Forge because they were Kickstarter people, so they had the coloring stuff ahead of time. But now that I have access to it as a pleb who didn't kickstart the Hero Forge coloring thing, I can now get in there and actually make all the minis. So at this point forward, I have no excuse not to have 3D colored modeled miniatures for all of my monsters and all of my players until the end of time. So just put that as a check mark list on the list of things I need to do as a DM to get ready for stuff.
Yeah, except for the fact of the cost associated with all of that.
No, there's a way you can build any minis you want.
Oh,
Color
you're
them
just
however you want.
talking about the pictures for them.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
And then
no, that's brilliant.
they have a portrait mode. You just click the portrait mode, go put it to the angle that you want, take the picture, and it puts it transparent, and you're done. It's ridiculously easy.
That's fucking brilliant. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anytime I play from now on, I'm going to do that. All of my characters will probably be done that way.
So yeah, just another thing on the DM's list of stuff that we have to do before we do a virtual tabletop session.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, next weekend I'm planning on doing my session 0 for Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden, and we'll see how that goes. So we ran into a little snag. So one of my players really wanted to play a druid that focuses on the summoning spells and all that. Kind of works okay if you're in person. We've done it before. You know, when you get to like level 9 or 10, at that point, your spells, if you summon the, I don't even remember the name of there's a summoning spell that lets you summon up like 8 little crappy creatures that you can attack with. But yeah, once you hit 9th level, it doubles that number. So it'd be 16 of these things. So every time they go on their turn, you have to make 16 attacks. So trying to do this on the internet, you know, on Roll20, that's 16 tokens that they then have to control, and 16 separate attacks that they then have to roll. While the rest of my players would probably just continue to get frustrated and pissed off after it takes 30 minutes for them to get through a single turn.
So I know D&D Beyond was looking at that for their up and coming dice features and stuff like that. But with Roll20 and Forge, if you're using either of those systems, you can write macros to do all the rolling.
Yeah, but what if you have 3 of them attacking this guy, 3 of them attacking that guy? These 3 are fucking off over here doing this thing.
So you write,
and it's still the 16 separate tokens that all have to move and do things.
Yeah, I can definitely see the issue, but I mean, it's kind of like my Rogue in Star Wars, where my attack list is like literally 50 things at this point in time because I can attack with lightning charge, I can attack with lightning charge and sneak attack, and with lightning charge and sneak attack, or without lightning charge and sneak attack, and with lightning charge and sneak attack, and phase strike here, and phase strike there, and not phase strike. Oh, and this form gives me the variant where I crit on an 18, where normally I only crit on a 19. So I have 50 attacks just listed out on the stupid page, and it's horrible, and I hate it.
I know I've told you the stories of our.
I don't like rogues.
I know I've told you the story of our 3/5 frenzied berserker who actually had like a page of trigonometry just to figure out all of his different attacks. Like it really was. It was a page and a half of a grid of, okay, well, I'm giant sized. I'm not giant sized. I'm power attacking. I'm not power attacking. I'm enraged. I'm not enraged. Like just every different variant thereof.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like part of like being on the virtual tabletop, there's got to be a way to make it easier to remember all this stuff. But at that point in time, what are you doing with it that makes it you're not just playing a video game online? And when you're in person, it's neat and you can kind of see it all and watch it all unfold. You don't need all these fancy variants in your computer program like Roll20 because I know I critted an 18, so I see it and then I roll my damage die. I do that computing automatically as a human being.
Hmm.
But when you bring in virtual tabletop, it becomes harder. That's why for when I stream Rime of the Frost Maiden, they can use their character sheets or they just use real dice. I don't care. I'm going to use real dice because there's no way that I'm going to be able to use the online system and manage everything that way like a conductor in an insane railroad station. I'm just
Yeah.
going to DM like I normally DM with my dice and unfortunately not broadcast the dice rolls, but
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I may consider doing that myself because I don't want to have to upload all of the NPC information, all of the monsters from Rime of the Frost Maiden into Roll20 just to be able to utilize them. That's, it's hours and hours worth of work. So I may consider doing that. Just rolling normal dice anytime those guys are attacking might
and so I
simplify
think
things.
yeah, so I think the advice for all the DMs out there is just find the system that works for you and use that. Don't overcomplicate it. For me, I like using the encounter builder and the encounter tracker, the combat tracker for D&D Beyond. I think it's very smooth. I get to see all my monsters in one category, on one screen, and the players, and it goes in order. And I have no problems with that. It works simple for me, and then I can roll the dice, and I know what happens. And the players, there's that quick interaction between everybody. Um, Having to do it through Roll20, I'm sure if I spent a long time working with Roll20 and getting exposure to it and running with it, it would eventually work. But I'm not comfortable with it yet to
You've
do
been
that.
using D&D Beyond for years though at this point, so it makes
Yeah,
sense. That's what you're familiar with. I started on Roll20, so anything else outside of that, it's got a small learning curve for me.
yeah, but like even going back to my rogue example as a player, having to write out 50 freaking attacks to remember and have to remember which combo of attacks that I have to use. I had to eventually break out sneak attack, so it's its own thing that I have to roll. So now I have to press a button for the normal attack if I'm using lightning charge, and then have a button for phase strike, and then have the button for sneak attack, and then I got to press them all in order and not forget to do that. When if I'm a player, I can just go, okay, cool, I'm going to attack. So I need a D8 for this, D8 for this, D8 for this, and then roll everything. And it's
Well,
similar.
the Star
It's
Wars system,
similar, but
the
it's
Star Wars
easier just to do it
system
in person.
Sorry, the Star Wars system though does not translate into Roll20. Like we manually have to create every one of these attacks. If you try it with Dungeons and Dragons, they have a drag and drop system. Like if I'm casting Fireball, I just pull it. I then have it in my spell book. If I ever want to cast Fireball, all of the numbers are already done and in there, so I just click it one time and it does it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have to create those buttons for it. Whereas in the Star Wars thing, it's not programmed into there. So we had to manually do a lot of stuff for it.
Oh my god, there's so much stuff I have to do. And because I have force powers, now I have a whole other page that I have to have custom stuff added to. I'm just like,
I know. Yeah.
I'm done.
I mean, because I play the gambler on there, the scholar, and I don't have as many variants of attacks as you do, but the stuff that I can do, I probably have 30 different uh, abilities and feats that I can do at the level we're at. What are we? We're only like sixth level or something, seventh maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That game is there's a lot more feats. If I compare that to my D&D character I'm playing right now, who just hit 10th level, I think I've got I don't know 8 or 9 abilities and feats. It's not that much. Mind you, I am a wizard, so I still have a bunch of spells, but that's just par for the course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. You have a tendency with these rules heavy systems to sort of get bogged down and not be able to see the forest for the trees type thing. Uh, I know we ran into a couple of rules questions last night when we were playing. Me and you briefly started discussing one of them, and I figure we can go over this one on the podcast. And
Hmm.
before I even get into this, for anyone who's listening, it, first off, don't argue with the DM. The DM says something, that's what it is. Yeah, you want them to be consistent, and that's very important. But arguing a certain rule of how something works, don't ever do that. If the DM tells you, "Nope, you're grappled," you're grappled. Uh, the one that came up last night. So I was grappled. I'm playing a wizard, and the thing manages to pretty much beat me down while I'm grappled. So we had the question of, okay, I'm unconscious, bleeding to death. Am I still grappled? And initially, my thoughts were, no, the monster would release me. But I had after talking to you briefly about it, I thought more on it, and no, unconscious, they probably would still hold me, but there is no rule anywhere that says whether they release somebody who goes unconscious. Then I got to looking into it on whether or not if I had been killed, like dead body, am I automatically released? Your thoughts on it when we were discussing it was that no, I am not. That it would continue to hold on to me.
So, like if let's just have a scenario
Yeah.
and set it up. So I am a bar brawler. Okay. My whole existence is to grapple and then attack because I get advantage. I get advantage on attacking. That was a whole build in fourth edition.
Well, this isn't fourth edition, but all
I
right,
know, I
let's
know.
roll.
So the whole idea was to grapple the target and then just punch the crap out of them, and it worked. So when the situation came up where you killed a creature, you still had a free action, let them go. Now, if they're unconscious, the whole idea is okay, if I have them and I'm grappling them, they're now providing me 3/4 cover if they're a medium sized creature. So I have somebody grappled, they're unconscious, I have 3/4 cover from everything that's firing at me because
Fifth
I'm still
edition
holding on to them.
is that a fifth edition thing? Because I've never seen that.
In fifth edition, rules is written. If you have an ally or an enemy between you and someone making a range attack against you, uh, they have 3/4 cover because your ally or other creature is impeding you. Most people, including myself, don't play with that rule if it's an ally. But rules as written, if you have anything between you and the person that's doing a range attack, they have 3/4 cover. Even if it's a pane of glass and you're standing behind it, rules as written, 3/4 cover.
Half cover. I'm
A
reading it
full
right
plane,
now.
a, f-
A
a
target
full,
with
a, f- a
uh,
full plane of glass.
I'm sorry, yeah, okay, full play. Yes, yes, yes.
So
I was talking about an enemy being in front of you, half cover.
okay, so half cover. Okay, so it is advantageous for the person that has grappled the creature and beat it unconscious or beat it to death to continue having that body there in the grapple until it's no longer necessary, which would probably be their next turn.
So
Um,
advantageous, yes.
so
But go
does
ahead.
it? Do they automatically drop to the ground prone? No, because they're still in the grapple condition. The grapple condition is applied to a creature from somebody else.
It
Now,
is
when it
here's the caveat. The grappled condition is applied to a creature. When something hits dead status, is it an object or is it a creature? And there, I have this thread pulled up, and it is a long ass answer that I am not going to read all of. But
okay,
it
so
basically seems to boil down to when somebody hits dead status, they are considered an object, no longer a creature.
okay, but you still, when treating objects of holding them. Even if you're holding it and it goes from being a creature to an object, that's fine. You still are holding the object. It's still
But then it changes. At that point, it would switch to encumbrance rules, lifting and
right.
carrying rules, not grappling rules.
That's what I was going to say. At that point in time, if it's dead, I would switch to whether or not you're encumbered while holding the object. But you're still holding that object until that you let that go. So even if you go from creature to object, you're still holding it. You haven't let that grapple, that you hold thing, the hold action go.
It's funny. I'm thinking about this. That could actually hinder you because at that point you could easily be encumbered when you were grappling them.
Yeah, because like if they're alive and they're
And
grappled,
mind you, this is getting stupidly technical, and we're just throwing
right?
out ridiculous thoughts on this. None of this really matters that
So
deeply.
so the question then goes: you're not talking about two medium creatures. Now you're going up a couple ranks. What happens when you're fighting a huge creature and it grapples you? Usually in that intent, you're being picked up by the creature. And so then you go to dead status. And now you're considered an object. And they're a huge creature, so you're not encumbering them. They're just holding you in their hand. So now they start using it as an improvised weapon, I guess. And
Yeah,
they're
I mean,
throwing
you absolutely can use dead bodies as weapons. There is no rule that says you can't. It would be improvised, so you'd probably just deal a D4 plus strength bonus. But if whatever works, sometimes a giant's just got to grab a goblin and smash other people with them.
So going back to your previous point beforehand, it all as the player, you kind of have to let the DM. You have to understand the DM is trying to process all this at once. So if it makes sense for him in the moment to handle it differently, you just let him do that. And unfortunately, just roll with whatever he says.
Yeah.
If
So
he says that it dies and it falls to the ground, and you didn't let it go, Speakman said, "Well, I didn't want to. I didn't want. I'd still be holding him. I don't want him to drop to the ground." He goes, "No, it fell to the ground." Then just go with it. It sucks, but just go with it.
yeah. So
Um,
last night, it actually was very, very beneficial for me to not continue to be held, and that is how the DM ruled it. Uh, so it actually worked out in my favor because at that point, because grapple, they have advantage on attacks against you. So I got beat down unconscious. He ruled that I was not held anymore. Then I got healing word, and then it tried to attack me again to grapple me and missed. So at that point, my attacks, I was casting scorching rays at it. Uh, I'm not at disadvantage or anything at that point. It's not getting advantage to hit me. Worked out well for me. That being said, that was how he ruled at that time. If this ever comes up again, for consistency's sake, that's how it needs to continue to be ruled.
well, it is even if you later say, "Hey, if that happens again, I'm going to rule it this way."
But if you say it that way ahead of time, like
Yeah,
I am, if he had said, "Okay, I am unsure in this situation. I'm ruling it this way this time," and I've done this plenty of times myself. But if at a later date I may change that, that's fine because he's giving everybody the heads up. He doesn't know. We're just ruling it that way. The game can keep pressing forward.
yeah. So like from a player perspective, sometimes you just have to let the DM do what they need to do to keep things fluid and moving, and you know you have to trust that the DM is not doing it maliciously because things aren't going in their favor. But if you're having that problem,
Yeah,
you have bigger problems.
if you don't trust your DM, we're really going to do an episode here, or maybe a few episodes, or maybe every episode we'll just read one story of really bad dungeon mastering. Because my lord, some of the stuff I have read online about how bad some DMs are. That one you sent me, oh my god.
There was the Food of Goblins, which was weird, and then no. Okay, so I think I remember the DM story you're telling about where the guy had it was him and his buddy, and his buddy was a unique class that was like a werewolf vampire thing. Is that the one you're remembering?
That is in fact not the one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
I can't remember the one I'm thinking of. I'll have to find it. But my God, I remember that one too. Yeah, yeah, that guy's a horrible dungeon master. Please either stop playing, stop running D&D, or get better. whoever you were.
Well, I don't think we discussed this in the previous podcast, did we?
No, we've never talked about this one.
Okay.
If you could remember the story, by all means.
So I remember the story. The story was a group of people were playing an Adventures League. Now, for everyone who doesn't know what Adventures League is, Adventure Leagues is it's a program set up by, I think, the DMs Guild and WotC to let people basically make a character per season, a season being a couple months, and basically play that character through a bunch of pre-constructed adventures that usually tie into the latest release or something along those lines. So, for example, season 9 just concluded, which was basically tied into Descent into Avernus. So they had a bunch of unique story missions that dealt with the city of El Toril being pulled into Avernus and getting into Baldur's Gate and kind of helping the situation there. And it kind of played as a side story to if you actually played the hardcover Descent into Avernus. Great stuff. A great team puts it together. They usually do a lot of special things whenever the holidays roll around. So, like, there was this time last year that season 9 had started, and they had like a Halloween theme. So, a couple of the adventures had Halloween themed monsters in there. So, if you killed those Halloween themed monsters, you got candy corn, and then you could use that candy corn to buy specific Halloween items that you could give to your season 9 Adventure League character to help them out forever.
It's not like candy corn has any other use.
So, like, I played during that season as my Goliath fighter, and I got like a spider mount, and I got a witch's cauldron that I could get potions out of once per weekly session. It's a lot of great fun. Most brick and mortar stores have an Adventure League chapter you can go in and play. The whole idea is for you to kind of get in there, make a character, and then play through that character. If you miss a week, that's fine, because all the stories for that week are self-contained. And then you can take that character and go to another store or go to a whole different place on the other side of the country and play that same character at that Adventures League. So it's a big community, great stuff, and definitely advise if you want to start getting into D&D. That's definitely a way to start. You're going to meet a lot of great people, a lot of bad people, a lot of bad DMs. But generally, you're going to find a lot of people who are just there for the fun of it and will help you learn the game as best as possible. So the story goes that I read online that they were playing Adventures League, and specifically, a lot of people had stopped playing Adventures League, so they had either grown too much, they had to have another table. So a DM and his buddy, another guy, and 3 friends all got together and played Adventures League. Now, the store had a lot of people set up there to kind of help run everything, and they had met through Discord to kind of talk and get their first character set up. And everyone built characters according to Adventures League rules, except for the friend of the DM. He came in there with a homebrew class that was basically a tabaxi werewolf / vampire / shadow demon. It was like a 12-year-old's fantasy of what Wolverine, Batman, and Deadpool all rolled together would be, the kind of thing.
It's Batman dual-wielding Supermans, dual-wielding Predators, dual-wielding lightsabers.
So, like, the small pieces of data that it gave was like this thing was immune to all damage types unless it was silver, and then even if it was silver, it was only half damage unless it was silver and magical. And the straight up rule in Adventures League is you have to play by the raw. You have to play with the rules as written, no exceptions, no homebrewing at all. So the 3 players reported that to the store manager. He said, yeah, make sure that guy does not play that class and let me know if he does. So they got back on Discord. The DM said, hey, we're not going to play on that Discord because, it's too busy. Let's play on my personal Discord. So they hopped over to his personal Discord, And this was all basically an attempt so they could do the shady stuff without actually having the problem.
Right.
And they started playing the game. Well, of course, that player was playing that homebrew race, and everyone else was playing normal people. So another rule of Adventure League is there's no PvP unless both people consent to PvP occurring, or there's just no PvP at all. One of the two. The Tabaxi werewolf vampire, like in Blade wannabe, kept trying to steal the holy symbol from the paladin, one of the three friends that I played. And he kept beating the guy on the sleight of hand checks when he tried to steal it. And he said that he would basically take it and hide it in a different location, so that the Tabaxi would stop stealing it. And then that Tabaxi player complained that the paladin was metagaming, and the paladin was like, "No, you're metagaming. Why the hell is your Tabaxi trying to steal this rusty metal object that I'm carrying on me? How do you know it's a holy symbol since you're not a paladin?"
It's your religion score.
Right. So there was a lot of just problems brewing. And the paladin said, "If you try to do this again, I will kill you." And the Tabaxi was like, "Man, whatever you say, blah, 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 blah." So then the Tabaxi decided to steal the holy symbol again.
Yep.
He got caught again. So the paladin immediately attacked the Tabaxi, rolled a critical, did a level 3 smite, and just obliterated the guy for something like 50, 60 damage, whatever level they were. And it was enough damage that it would have killed the Tabaxi.
Except he's half damage from everything, and
No
damage if you're not silver.
The paladin just happened to have a silver magic weapon.
Perfect.
Aha. So then the Tabaxi guy started complaining to the DMs, like, this guy's metagaming. He knew about my character's weaknesses ahead of time. That's why he had the weapon like this. There's not fair. He's gonna kill my character. My butt hurts. And
I want some wine with that cheese.
The DM kind of like stopped them because I guess they were arguing a lot. And he said, "Okay, this is what happens. You swing, and you think that your Warhammer connects with Tabaxi, Batman, Superman, but your swing follows through, and just a cloud of shadowy mist is there. You then all feel this darkness and penetrate your brain and speak to you and laugh maniacally. It says, 'That was a close one. You almost got me.' Then behind you, 15 feet, the shadows and darkness form the Tabaxi as he stands there laughing maniacally at the missed attack." It was at that point in time, those three players said, "Thank you for being a DM. We're going to go now." And then they never came back and played again. So, I don't remember what the point of the story was, but bad DM, bad player.
So I want to thank the person who the dungeon master and his buddy for doing this, and I also hate them for having done this. I want to thank them for doing this because that is the perfect example of what never to do as a dungeon master, and it makes for a great story of telling how bad dungeon masters can be. I hate the fact that they did that because they literally might have ruined the game for 3 people forever. Who knows? Adventures League, sometimes you get people who are brand new to that whole scene. And if that's their first experience with it, I can understand never wanting to play again.
Yeah. So like we had in our store, we had a couple very new players that came out. I killed a new player the first time he ever sat down and played D&D. I'm sorry, like I was strapped by myself in that store. We had 4 DMs at one point in time, and then they all quit or stopped playing. And it came out to be just me because I had stepped up to basically take over my table when the DM had to stop playing. and then moved away. So I had like 9-10 people at my table at one point in time, while the other freaking DM is sitting at table over, not playing, but coming over to my table and saying, "Hey, that's not how the rules work." Screw you.
I'm still laughing at this, even though you have. I'm pretty sure you've told this on the podcast, but I don't even care. It's still funny.
So when I'm running a tier 2 table and you won't DM for the players, and I have to take in tier 1 players who are level 1 into a level 5 situation, and they die in one hit because there's nothing I can do to rectify that situation, that is also a bad DM because you are not helping out your other fellow DMs.
It's not your fault that the hill giant does 3d8 damage plus 7 per swing, or whatever
Yeah,
they do.
it's not my fault that the Warlock has 9 hit points and this Eldritch Blast did 12.
Yeah.
And he got hit twice.
Yep. He can't be helped. Yeah. Sorry. That is sort of the format of Adventurers League. But
so I mean, ultimately, the DM job is rough. A lot can go on. They are managing a lot of things. So if they judge a rule that is not clearly written wrong to you, be nice about it. Try to have them see it your way. A lot of DMs are really good with just rolling with the punches. Some are not. Some have to have it the way their brains process it, and that's fine. Just let them process it.
It is perfectly acceptable to point out the mistakes that a dungeon master makes. At the same time, a dungeon master needs to be willing to say, "Oh yeah, I screwed that up. Here's how we can fix it."
Yeah.
It doesn't. None of these games should ever be my way or the highway. Like it's a give and take relationship between the players and the dungeon master.
So it's also very helpful to think of everybody at the table as a game of improv. Some people are better at improv than others, and you just got to work with those people to help their skills get better. If you see a DM is struggling, I definitely will tell you that I do not know half the spells, and if it's over level 3, I definitely don't know the spell. But you know who does? 2 of my players know the rule book spell-wise like the back of their hand. So if I can immediately find a solution to answer to the problem, I'll just relate to them, and they know me as the DM for long enough to like, hey, I think it should be done this way, and I'm perfectly fine with having it that way. I trust my players, the players trust me. We're here to be fair and have a fun time because it's about the story and what's going on. It's not a DM versus player versus DM mentality.
Yeah,
If the DM really wanted to kill you, the Tarrasque is always just there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're level 8. That is a Tarrasque.
The ground begins to shake, and a Tarrasque just bursts out of the ground and roars. Roll initiative. You fail. It kills you instantly. DM has that power, so they're not there for that. That's not fun for them. And then DMs, they shouldn't be giving their friends special things because that weakens the game for everybody. If you are DM and like you're trying to impress a girl and she's at the table and you keep giving her magic items, well, she's not going to have a fun time because she's not going to have any challenge with the PC at all because she's going to be decked head to toe in magic items and nothing will be a challenge. There'll be no fun interactions.
Yeah, it was like that introduction recently we did. We're trying to bring in some of our friends. We occasionally play 7 Days to Die, which is a zombie shooter game that does have levels and equipment and all. And we wanted to bring everybody in at the very beginning of the game rather than where we were already at because we were at the top tier of the game. And if you bring them in, hand them all of this gear, and then send them out, that's not going to be any fun because they've literally skipped the entire portion of the game.
Yeah.
In D&D, if the party is already level 15 and you try to bring in somebody new, if they're not an experienced player, it would be awful for them because they're not going to know the rules. They're not going to know what they can do. You need to bring especially new people, bring them in at the beginning. But
so that actually reminds me of a funny story. I mentioned trying to impress a girl at the table. I had a DM'd a session. I was running D&D Encounters, which was the 4th edition of Adventures League,
Mhm.
And at that point in time, they would send the material to the store. The store would give it to the DMs who want to play. So it had like a little book and tokens and stuff. It was great. It came with a bunch of maps. So I was doing the Lost Crown of Neverwinter. I think is what the adventure was.
That sounds familiar.
And the adventure starts the best way I have ever seen a D&D adventure start, just in the middle of a town square. And in the middle of town square, there's like 7 or 8 different points of interest that the players can go interact with, and you can have a nice beginning RP session. And then, like there's a broken down wagon, and the person fixing the wheel is actually a harper. And like if you talk with him and kind of like you'll get the impression that he's a harper through some of the thieves camp they do, and then you could kind of get a layout of what's going on in the plaza. And like if you go to the blacksmith, he's actually doing stuff. And it was a great beginning because you start off with RP, and the first encounter is not fighting goblins, it's fighting troglodytes that come up crawling out of the sewer. And it was awesome. And it was 4th edition, so your characters are a bit beefier, but nonetheless it was still a game where you had to be careful. You died if you took half your hit point pool negative in a single hit. So in 5th edition,
we almost saw that last night in our game.
So in 5th edition, if you have 9 hit points and you get hit it for 18 damage, you're dead. In 4th edition, you would start off around like 20, 25 hit points, and if you were knocked to negative 12, 13, negative 13, you're dead. I was actually trying to date a girl at this time, and
Chris.
So I had basically started this session. This was not her first time playing D&D, but I wanted to be a good impression, so I was having things go on, and she just happened to be right next to the sewer exit. So when the combat started, 2 troglodytes crawled out and began to attack her. Now, I didn't flank her, which flanking was a very big thing in 4th edition. It was standard rules. It's a variant in 5th edition. But if they're side by side, if they're 5 feet next to each other, they get like +8 or something to their damage. Similar to like bugbears. They're like they'd be like CR1 creatures in 5th edition.
Yeah, I think they're CR1/8 or 1/4 in 5th.
So these 2 guys came tromping out of the sewer, and one hitter brought her to 1 hit point. The next one hit her, brought her to negative half her hit points. And so she didn't last a round.
Welcome to Dungeons and Dragons. I hope you enjoyed your stay.
So I felt really bad.
And I'm never going out on a date with you.
Yeah, the whole thing ended poorly. So I mean, at the end of the day, you can't play favorites. You can't be cruel. You had to ride that middle line. I'm not sure what I should have done in the situation now that I look back on it. That was 10 years ago.
You should have done exactly what you did. You followed the rules.
I know. So I haven't killed my wife yet in Dungeons and Dragons. I've tried.
She's outsmarted you.
I'm not counting TOA because TOA everybody died except for everybody died.
So I came across this meme, and I don't know if you've seen it or not. Since you're such a huge fan of the Tarrasque and you were just talking about it, I had to bring it up. So it's a picture of the Tarrasque, and it says 40-foot move speed, can't leave the ground, no magical abilities, no ranged option, no regeneration. It could be taken down by a patient Aarakocra using a +1 bow.
Yes.
Challenge rating 30.
Yes.
So you have seen this?
No, I haven't seen that meme, but I know that's the strategy in killing the Tarrasque.
Yeah, I don't know why I wouldn't just pick up a house and throw it at it, but
So a lot, like I remember hearing a lot of strategy about like, oh, the Tarrasques are so easy, they're stupid end bosses. And yes, the weakness of the Tarrasque is it can't fly. It doesn't have the Godzilla laser beam on it, and it just is on the ground and destroys everybody. If you're on the ground next to a Tarrasque, you're dead. If you're on a flying broom and you can cast magic missile at it or use a +1 magic bow and shoot at it, eventually through its attrition, you possibly could kill it. Remember, it does have regeneration, so you better be hitting for a crap ton.
Well,
But
actually, the meme says it does not have regeneration. I did not look this up, so I don't know what the case is.
pretty sure it does.
I'm just going off what the meme said.
Yeah.
Here we go, both of us. You're D&D Beyonding it. I've already pulled out the rule book. Oh, Tarrasque. Let's see. It has frightful presence, so that's something. Legendary resistance, magic resistance. I don't see regeneration anywhere on here.
Man, everything got so nerfed in 5th edition.
Oh yeah, 3rd edition Tarrasque absolutely had regeneration and could only be killed by using a wish spell on it once it was at negative. Like it had to be at bleeding status and then a 9th level wish spell to kill it. Otherwise it just regenerated and came back.
So here's the thing. Here's my logic to the 5th edition Tarrasque. In nature, a creature that evolves a spiky carapace on the back does so specifically to ward off predators that are larger than it. The 5e Tarrasque has a spiky carapace on the back. Why?
We've briefly discussed this before, but yeah, there's got to be a predator, something bigger than the Tarrasque or same size at least. You know.
So my eventually hope
there are probably every mountain you see is probably a Tarrasque, and they don't mate. They don't mate. They just fight. So they all got that shell.
If I ever produce a book of monsters for like DM's Guild or something, it is going to be 101 different variations of Tarrasques. Because at the end of the day, the Tarrasque is something that comes from the planet that it's on.
Someday I am going to run an epic level game, and when they get to level 40 or something like that, I'm going to give somebody a staff of summon pack of Tarrasque. Just a fucking a cone of Tarrasque.
Well, they have the fork of bees. You can have a fork of Tarrasques.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a fork of Tarrasque. You just hold it up, you say the power word, and like 30 Tarrasque come out in a cone. Normally it starts off like a 5-foot square and goes out 60 feet or whatever. This one, it just goes out 600, because like every Tarrasque is, 50 feet or whatever.
Yeah. So the thing about the Tarrasque, like I said, if I ever make a monster manual, it's going to be all Tarrasque. It's going to be variation to Tarrasque. Because at the end of the day,
it's going to be like the 4th edition Goblin. It's just 5th edition Tarrasque.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, this Tarrasque in 5th edition to me is the Goblin of Tarrasques.
Yep.
So if I were to compare a better Tarrasque, it's Godzilla. Godzilla, for all intents and purposes, is a Tarrasque.
Yeah, with the breath.
It is. With a breath weapon that can fly, that can travel through space, that can destroy Earth. That he is a Tarrasque. His whole presence is walk out of the ocean, kick over a few buildings, wreck shit because the Earth said so, and to go back down. And look how hard he is to kill. Mostly because he has regeneration, unlike this Tarrasque.
It literally is what the Tarrasque is designed to do. They say the son of a bitch wakes up every 100 years, comes over, knocks over a town or two, and then goes back to sleep. Like that's the story of the Tarrasque.
Yeah.
But no, I love this thought, this idea of having different types of Tarrasque out there. You'll have the inventor Tarrasque. It'll have like a bag, that it can reach into. It wears goggles. Occasionally it throws explosives. Carries like bees on the end of a stick, like the goblins or the kobold inventor does.
Well, I think there's definitely untapped potential because you can have the aquatic Tarrasque, you can have the sky Tarrasque, you have the magma Tarrasque,
shadow Tarrasque, yeah.
Shadow Tarrasque.
God, could you imagine a Tarrasque with shadow step? That would be horrifying. Yeah, and it steps out of the shadows. I don't know where you're going to find a shadow big enough for a Tarrasque other than the shadow it makes.
No, I was just thinking of Tarrasque with Misty Step. Just poof poof like wow. It can Misty Step 10 foot slower than its move speed. Or is it 60? Whatever it is.
No, it says move speed 40. I think Misty Step is 60. It's either 30 or 60, but either way, yeah.
So I could just picture that like, oh, I'm the Arakar with a +1 bow. Eventually I'll win. And it just Misty Step like into the sky and just bats it out of the way.
It's just like Dennis Rodman knocking a fucking basketball out of the air.
He's just spiking it to the ground. Or doing a Dragon Ball Z style, which just kind of grapples it, like falls and just lands on top of it.
That's brilliant.
Tarrasque with Misty Step. Oh, the possibility.
Yeah, the ideas that we come up with. Oh my lord, that's gonna be great. I mean, honestly, you can have a wizard Tarrasque. Who knew that it knew spells? Next thing you know, it's got the fly spell on you and it's chasing the Aarakocra.
All I see is like all I can envision is a 5e Tarrasque with the Mickey Mouse wizard hat on with the robes and like the big white gloves, and he's just like.
Yeah, hell, you could even start giving them like class levels. You know, a ranger, like a Tarrasque ranger. Could you imagine the size of the fucking bow? It would have to use like a redwood tree or something to make it. Well, that went off the fucking rails real quick.
And to think, you want to talk about Tasha's all day today.
Well, that was the only thing I'd come across lately. But Tasha's could wait. Little
So
did we know.
Next podcast, we're going to talk about Tasha's, also another tea thing.
Another what? Oh, another tea thing?
Yeah, Tarrasque and Tasha's.
Tarrasque and Tasha's. Fair enough. Yeah, like Tasha's, I don't know. It comes out in another month, I think.
Yep. So all that's out there is just leaks and stuff right now.
Yeah, but we were going to kind of go over some of the leaks, but we'll do that in the next episode. I'm sure everybody can wait. And besides, if they want to know, well, there's the internet. You can Google the leaks just like I did.
All right. So next week, Tasha's. I think that'll do it for today.
Yep. All right, everybody. See you next time. Bye, Craig.
Goodbye, Craig. Sing a song of our greatness.
Somebody
Sing a song of Tarrasque.